Hi, I'm Sue Barlow and welcome to Cape House Cooking. Today we're going to make one of my absolutely favorite recipes, spinach lasagna with meatballs and garlic bread. For me, it's the trifecta. So here we go. The first thing I want to do, because there's a lot of different recipes involved here, is make my sauce. That's going to be the basis for everything. It's what I need to put my meatballs in and what I need to use to layer the lasagna. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my 4 cans of Pastine kitchen ready ground peeled tomatoes. I use 2 cans of the regular. And then I use 2 cans of the chunky style. I've been using this recipe a long time, and it's also the recipe that I use for my pizza sauce, which I'll make on another show when I make homemade pizza. But yeah, there's no long simmering, there's no tomato paste, it's just these 4 cans. There we go. Get them all in our pot. I have my water boiling on the stove because we're going to cook those lasagna noodles up. And 4. Alright, so we have our sauce. Put it back over there for now. I'm going to leave the lid off and just put it on low. I'm going to add a 1/4 can of water, and that just gets all the sauce left in the can out and makes it a little less thick. You don't want it to get too thick. Alright, so there's that. And I'm just going to season the sauce. So I have my 2 cloves of garlic. And the easiest way to get the shell, this papery shell off the garlic, is to just kind of crush it a little bit. That helps it come right off. Kind of breaks that papery shell and lets you peel it off. These are big cloves. If they were smaller cloves, I could probably use 3. You hear that crunch? It's breaking all that papery coating on the garlic. So there they are. I just cut off that tough end. I don't really like that. And then I could continue to just kind of cut these up, which I could, but I bought this little handy gadget on a cruise ship, believe it or not, and it's called the garlic twist. It was rated at the time, a few years ago, the #1 new gadget in cooking, and since then I've seen them in the stores. You can get them in a cooking store, or you can get them online on Amazon or probably another online vendor. But then you just twist. How easy is that? So, and this just kind of makes nice crushed, mushed up garlic for you. So then we can just put that in our sauce. A couple of tablespoons of olive oil. So I'm just going to put it right in here. And that way, 1, 2. You can get some more of this stuff off. Get that oil infused with all that good garlic. 3 tablespoons of dried Italian seasoning. So you can just buy any kind of Italian seasoning dried. I just picked this one up at a discount store. It smells great. And to kind of activate it, what I like to do is just kind of pinch it in my fingers and crush it a little bit when I'm putting it in. It tends to really activate it. And this is what really is going to flavor this sauce. I'm just going to put a couple tablespoons of olive oil in my boiling water so that lasagna doesn't stick together, those noodles, when I cook them. I can make this ahead of time and serve it. Relax and sit down. My food is all made. And have dinner with my family or with my guests. So that's really nice. So we have to use the spinach, get the spinach in there. Normally I'd say fresh spinach is the way to go, but I really have not found any difference in the flavor or texture using frozen spinach. And it's kind of nice to be able to have this just in your freezer. You don't have to worry about having fresh spinach on hand. So I usually just put it in a bowl and microwave it a little bit. Two minutes. Siri, set a timer for 8 minutes. You don't want to overcook the lasagna. We're going to put it in a baking dish and cook it some more. So the one thing you really don't want to do is overcook it. I like it just al dente. The box says 8 minutes, so that's what we'll do. The box is usually pretty correct, I've found. One of the things I like about this recipe is that I can have the meat on the side for people that like meat and keep the lasagna vegetarian in case some of my guests or family members don't feel like eating meat or are vegetarians and want to make sure they enjoy the meal, feel comfortable eating it. And so I'm going to divide the sauce to part of it being without meat, and the other part I'm going to put the meatballs in to cook the meatballs in there. Alright, so I took out a couple of quarts for the plain sauce. Now I'm going to add my mushrooms. I'm going to add my mushrooms to both parts of the sauce. A few in there, and the rest in here. These are portobello mushrooms, but you could use just regular mushrooms or any kind of mushrooms you like, or no mushrooms at all. I like mushrooms. I like to leave them nice and big. If there's somebody who objects to a mushroom, then they can always just eat around them. So I find that works pretty well. Get the mushrooms mixed in. See how our spinach is doing. Oh yeah. That's steaming hot now. Alright. So that's good. Let's see if we can cool this down a little bit quicker. Just put some cold water on it, cool it down so I can work with it. Okay. Now I have my colander. I'm just going to put it in the colander. Squeeze the water out of it. You want to make sure pretty much all the water's out. Alright, so we're going to put a nice amount of sauce so the noodles don't stick. There's the timer saying that the noodles are done. So I'm going to take them off right away. Let's get some of the water. Put cold water in to stop the cooking. By keeping them in the water, it also stops them from sticking together. So I find that's the best way to do it. Just leave them in the water. They won't be sitting in there that long. So it's just fine to leave them in there for now. So the other thing I want to do is work on my filling for this lasagna, which is going to be ricotta cheese. So it's 32 ounces, so 2 pounds. And some people make lasagna with a bechamel sauce. They don't like ricotta. And you can do that, but my family likes the ricotta cheese, so it's just the way we make it here. And it's kind of bland, or someone might say a delicate flavor. But I like to season it up a bit, and this is how we're going to incorporate our spinach. We have our ball of spinach that's been thawed out, cooked a little bit in the microwave, and then the water's been squeezed out. And then I'm just going to season the spinach with some salt and pepper. Salt, pepper, teaspoon of garlic powder, half a cup of Parmesan cheese, this is nice. Put my egg in. This kind of holds it all together. Makes it nice and creamy. That was lovely. And my spinach. This is probably the hardest part, again, get incorporated. Keep kind of stirring it around, and the package was chopped spinach, so that helps. It was already pre-chopped when I bought it in the frozen package. Then you just stir it around, and actually I'm going to put this sauce back on the stove so it just keeps cooking, simmering a little bit, because it hasn't been cooking that long. This was the way I got my children to eat spinach for the first time, in their lasagna. They didn't even know it was really in there. You really can't taste it as far as it being real spinachy. It's very inoffensive. Boosts up the nutritional value of the lasagna, which is nice. Gets the vegetables incorporated. All good things. That looks pretty good. So my noodles are done, my sauce is ready. My ricotta filling is all made. And now we have to slice up that mozzarella cheese. The easiest way to slice mozzarella, it's a little trick, is to put it in the freezer for about 10-15 minutes before you plan on slicing it. Just makes it much easier to work with. Mozzarella can be very soft. So in order to firm it up, we just stick it in the freezer for 10-15 minutes. You don't want to let it freeze, of course, but just let me get that out and get that sliced up. So, you know, there's a couple of kinds of mozzarella, and they have the part skim or the whole milk. I can never decide. I know whole milk tastes better, it's so delicious. But the part skim, you know, a little less fat. So I split the difference. I use 1 pound of whole milk and 1 pound of the part skim. So I like to get nice slices about this thick. Maybe, I don't know what that is, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So it's time to assemble this. So we have our main ingredients here. We have our lasagna noodles that are sitting. I just let them float around in the water. You just lay them out side by side, close together, bumped up against each other. And then you can see over here, this one is not enough room for a whole sheet. These tear really nice. You just fit a piece in. Fits in real nice. And I go one piece this way. You just use your knife and trim that off. Sauce over, and you need a layer of sauce on top of the noodles. And I like to put some of these nice mushrooms in. Include them. Sauce, spread all over. Then you put your layer of mozzarella. Use some of the part skim, mix it up with some of the whole. On top of that, on top of that we can put our layer of ricotta. So this mozzarella pieces make a nice little bed with this ricotta on. I don't want to cheat anybody who gets a corner piece. Make sure they get all the goodness too. Not just the people who get the center pieces. So that looks pretty good. And then we go back to our layer of noodles. Just go like this to get the excess water off of them. do the cheese again. So as you can see, this is a lot of food, and it feeds a lot of people, which is really great. And like I said, you can make it all ahead of time. And then when my guests come, I can entertain them. Now this is a dish I used to make for my parents a lot. They used to tease me and say I was the Meals on Wheels. As they got older, and I wanted to help them out with some of the cooking. Sometimes I go down to Florida even and visit them at their condo and make a big batch of this, cook it, cut it up into, two people, portions for 2 people, for the 2 of them, and put it in their freezer, and they can just take it out and defrost it and heat it up and have a nice meal. And I absolutely loved that. I thought that was the best thing ever. So that's another thing about this dish. If you want to take it to a party, it travels really well. The leftovers, sometimes people say the leftovers are even better than when you made it that day. So it's a lot of great things about this recipe. And like I said, you've got your vegetarian people covered and your meat people covered with the meatballs on the side. And it's nice and light. Just really, you can eat a piece of this and not feel like, oh, the old brick in the stomach. So, lots of people over the years have asked me for this recipe. I thought this would be a good one to make. Now, lastly, we just put on our layer of noodles, our final layer. This is layer 3 of noodles. I have my oven already preheated to 375 degrees. So it's all ready for me to just pop this in the oven. Alright, and then we just cover it with sauce. A nice layer of sauce so those noodles don't dry out when you're baking it. Okay, they're all covered. We're just going to stick it in the oven, 375 degrees for 45 minutes to an hour. Should be about 45 minutes. When it's all bubbly, you can see in the sides it's all bubbling, it's done. I have a pizza stone in my oven, but don't worry about that. That won't hurt anything. And now let's make those meatballs. I've been talking about them. I have 2 pounds of ground beef. You can use, 80-85% lean. Doesn't have to be super lean. Doesn't have to be the most expensive ground beef. This is just, I think this is 85% lean ground beef. And I'm going to put in there, this is so easy. You make this all in one bowl and mix it all together, and it's fantastic. I'm going to do a couple eggs. And a teaspoon of salt. Okay. And some ground black pepper. Okay. half a cup of Parmesan cheese. That looks good. Two teaspoons of garlic powder. There we go. 1 cup of Italian style breadcrumbs. So the Italian style just means they already have this Italian seasoning mixed in. Saves you a step. Some people like to use plain, then put their own seasoning in because they like their seasoning, you know, just the way. It gives them a little more control. They get it just the way they like it. I thought these have always tasted pretty good this way, so that's how I'm doing it. So 1 cup of Italian style or Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. And then half a cup of milk. So these we mix up with by hand. I'm just going to put gloves on. Sometimes I don't feel like handling raw meat that much. And I'm going to put the milk in slowly. I'm not going to just dump in the whole half cup because this recipe really is about texture and moisture. So just kind of mush it around like this. This is really the best way to mix this stuff. Okay. Strangely, when I make the actual meatballs, I do like to make them without gloves. Just makes it easier for me to feel how, if they're getting moist or not. So I've just lined my cookie sheet with some aluminum foil and sprayed it down a little bit with some cooking spray. Just regular oil spray. And this does feel just right. So there's a little teeny bit of milk left in the cup. Not going to worry about that. And just roll them about the size of, I don't know, a golf ball. And I don't like to roll them, you know, too much. I don't want to toughen up the meat. I just want to get them the right size. Get them stuck together. Get them on the cookie sheet. And it's a good idea to try to make them all about the same size. They cook evenly. Although they'll cook some in the sauce even after we're done baking them. You know, I grew up frying my meatballs. At this stage, we would roll our meatballs and then we would roll them in the breadcrumbs again and we'd fry them in like a 1/4 inch of oil in a skillet on the stove. And, you know, that's how I grew up doing it, and you can definitely do it that way. But then I discovered baking them, and honestly, I do it for a couple of reasons. I think it's probably a little healthier than frying them in oil, a little less calories, and honestly, it's less messy. You know, that oil spraying all over the place as you know, fry meatballs. And just you had to be there turning them, or one edge would burn because they did tend to, those breadcrumbs would burn in the hot oil. So there was a little bit of labor intensive. So I discovered I like them just as well baked. They taste just as good, a little bit healthier, so I thought, what the heck? Go this route. I've talked to some Italian folks who don't cook them at all. They just put them in the sauce raw and let them cook in the sauce. I like them cooked, you know, that way. I don't cook this sauce a whole long time. There's sauces that, You know, people let simmer on the stove for hours and hours. That's not this sauce. The sauce is lighter, more delicate, I think, maybe. And I don't plan on cooking it for hours, so I would be worried my meatballs wouldn't be cooked. So I just bake them. Got the oven on anyway, cooking the lasagna. And less labor intensive, which I like. So, I mean, everybody thinks, oh my gosh, you made lasagna and meatballs. I mean, you saw how fast that went. There they are. Since I didn't wear gloves, you really want to make sure you wash your hands thoroughly after handling raw meat. Okay, so I'm just going to put these meatballs in the oven. It says to cook these at 400 degrees. My oven's at 375 for the lasagna, but I'm just going to put them in and cook them a little bit longer. It says 15 minutes, so maybe I'll cook them 20-25 minutes, and that should work out to about the same. That lasagna smells fantastic. Really good already. So the last thing we're going to make is the garlic bread. People make garlic bread all different ways. This is the way that I've made it in the family for many years. A lot of people use olive oil to make their garlic bread. I use butter. We're kind of a bread and butter type of family. So that's the way I like to do it. So I just slice the bread like this, about an inch apart. And I don't go all the way through. That way the bread stays together. This is a nice French loaf. I think I would use Italian bread, but I found the French bread, because it's smaller, works better. Sometimes if I try and make garlic bread out of Italian bread, because the pieces and the loaf is so big, it gets kind of soggy and floppy. So I find these narrower loaves work better. And if it does break apart, that's fine. You just don't want every slice to be individual. Alright, so we have that done. That's a big loaf, and I might just break it into 2 pieces anyway. It'll be easier to work with and easier to wrap up. So we're just going to add our 2 sticks of butter. See, that's nice and soft. And a tablespoon of garlic powder. You can make this as garlicky as you want. Some people like their garlic bread really strong. Other people just lightly garlic, you know. Just going to have to go with what you like. So because the butter's soft, this is just going to mix up really fast. Some people, you know, take olive oil and they run it down, you know, a loaf of bread that's just been sliced, you know, in half, and you lay both halves open and you just put some olive oil and rub some fresh garlic on it. It's one way to do it. Like I said, this is the way my family's done it for a long time, and it tastes really good. You know, generally speaking, olive oil is better for you than butter, and said it can lower your overall cholesterol. That tastes good. Just the right amount of garlic. Alright, so we get our butter knife. don't know if you have heard about the big olive oil scandal in Italy. It's been going on actually for a couple of years. And the olive oil industry is a billion-dollar industry, and it's one of Italy's greatest exports. And now they say the, quote, agro-mafia has taken over, infiltrated the olive oil industry. And even the most well-known brands have been faking it. And when they say EVOO, extra virgin olive oil, tests have shown that, it's not extra virgin olive oil. And sometimes it's coming from countries that, other than Italy, it's not coming from the country that it says on the bottle. Some of it's coming from, believe it or not, Syria, still producing olive oil, and Tunisia. So the labeling is not exact, to say the least. So it's been a big scandal over there. The Italian government's very upset about it. They want, to protect their name in olive oil. It's been they've been making olive oil for hundreds of years and have a pretty great reputation in the past, and they'd like to get that restored. The United States is really starting to get into olive oil production, which is a great thing, especially with this problems going on overseas. So I was reading an article where some testers were comparing the United States olive oil and the Italian olive oil, and ours were being ranked very favorably. And one of the ones that was said to be the most economical and affordable was the, believe it or not, Trader Joe's brand of olive oil. So if you have a Trader Joe's near you, you can always go there and try their olive oil out. See what you think. So one thing about the garlic bread is to not forget it in the oven. Something I've done many times. I stick it in for like 10 minutes into the oven to get it nice and hot and warmed up before the meal, and then I forget it in there and I burn it. So you don't want to do that. So best way to do things, because people are coming over or your family's sitting down, you're busy, set a timer. I try to set a timer for everything. Alright, so then we just wrap these in foil. I always wondered, are you supposed to use one side of the aluminum foil or the other? And according to the aluminum foil makers, no, doesn't make any difference whatsoever. So that was good to find out. Alright, so the timer's going off for our meatballs. So let's see how those are doing. Siri, set a timer for 15 minutes. So I'm just gonna...
Okay, 15 minutes.
I'm just going to reset my timer for 15 minutes because I think the lasagna needs to cook a little longer. Let's get those meatballs out and see how they did. Oh, those look good. You see those? Beautiful. So we're just going to pop them right in our sauce. I'm just going to cut one, see how cooked through they are. Just want to check. Oh yeah, very nicely cooked. Just going to get those right in the sauce. They'll absorb some of that sauce and the flavor. Just see how lovely these are. It's nice having the foil, so it'll be an easier cleanup. And I'm just going to try this one when it cools off, make sure it tastes good. By the time the lasagna is done, this next batch of meatballs will be done. lasagna's looking good. It starts looking too brown on top. You can always put a piece of foil over it. For the last bit, I have a piece of foil that I saved. You can always just lay this on top if I feel like it's looking a little, I can see a little bit of browning on the edges. I can just lay that on the top. Let's try this meatball. Mmm. That's delicious. Nice, nice. I'm gonna have one more bite actually. Mmm. That's great. You can see on the bottom side, got kind of brown because of that nice little crunch on the bottom. It's just a perfect texture. Nice flavor. Garlic and Italian seasoning. Mmm. Tender but not mushy. Waiting for our lasagna to come out. Let's see how much time is left on that. About 10 minutes. So actually I think we can put this cheese on top and let that melt. It only has about 10 minutes left of cooking. Let me warn you. Oh, that's heavy. That is food for a crowd. So we're going to put this cheese on top of this gorgeous lasagna. It is a beauty. Just look how beautiful that is. I'm just going to sprinkle this on. Believe it or not, there have been times when I've actually written messages, smiley faces, hearts, with this cheese on top. If you want to be more creative. Today I'm just going to sprinkle it randomly. Okay. I'm going to cover it again. I don't want the top layer to get too dried out. I'm just going to cover it for this last 10 minutes. I think that cheese is going to stick, which it might. It might stick a little bit. I'm just going to spray the foil with a little bit of spray so it releases. The cheese won't stick. Oops, there we go. Got this giant, oh, I should weigh that, see what it weighs. That's hefty. Okay, well there's the timer, so that means our lasagna should be ready. Oh, I can hear those meatballs sizzling away. Let's see how this lasagna did. Oh, that's beautiful. Really lovely. The thing to do is to let this set a while. It's really hard to cut and it's not quite as flavorful if it's burning hot. So just let it sit for about 10-15 minutes and that'll just help it all come together, and it'll be a lot easier to cut and serve, and it will actually taste a little bit better. And you always have that hot sauce if you want to put a little bit of that hot sauce right on top when you serve it, or you can lay it on top of a little bit of hot sauce, and that way that sauce will make sure it's hot enough. But you know, there's really no point to eating lasagna burning hot. You just can't really taste the flavors. So I'm going to stick this bread in because I'm on the last couple of minutes. Siri, set a timer for 8 minutes.
Okay, 8 minutes and counting.
So I'm on the last leg here, and we're just going to put the bread in while these meatballs finish cooking. There we go. I'm just turning my simmering sauce off. It's plenty hot, and it's been cooking those meatballs, and then I also have the vegetarian sauce as well. So things are looking great. I can use this foil to recover that after it's cooled. I'm actually going to take this lasagna to an event and serve it there. Alright, so the timer just went off for our meatballs and garlic bread, and I just stuck the rest of the meatballs into that sauce, and we're going to get the garlic bread out. Like I said, you want to make sure you set a timer for the bread. It burns easy, and turn off my oven now, and it's fantastic. People love this garlic bread. I'm just going to show you a little bit of what it looks like. Look at that. Just so delicious. All buttery and melty and soft. Yum. Alright, so that's it. That's everything. We have our meatballs, we have our lasagna, we have our garlic bread. We're ready to sit down to a great meal. Thanks again for watching this edition of Cape House Cooking. I'll see you next time.